You should be able to view the attendees box, Tony, so you can see people joining in there.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Okay. All right, I'm going to get that slide ready. Hi everyone, thanks for joining. We're just going to give it a couple more minutes for a few more attendees to jump in, and then we'll make a start. Okay, just going to give it a couple more minutes. Okay. All right, no problem. Okay, so let me just start sharing my screen with you, and then we'll make a start. Okay, cool. All right. Hopefully, everybody can see my screen share there. All right, no problem. Okay, so first of all, thank you everybody for joining this this AWS Immersion Day. Hosted by AWS and Sumo Logic. So what we'll do is we'll kind of jump through in a second, do some quick introductions, but just for some brief housekeeping. So this session is being recorded. You will receive a link to the recording after the session, so you can then go back in and review anything that you might need to. During this session itself, it's going to be a combination of us doing a discussion around the AWS Cloud SIEM solution that we have. And then additionally, what we're going to do is we're going to jump in and give you some hands-on time in the AWS SIEM and the AWS SIEM Advanced. And what I'll do just before we jump into that is I'll share a document with everybody via the chat window. It's just a PDF document that contains some information about the labs that we'll be doing. So it'll be handy if you can download that once I share it, open it up, and then be ready to follow that through. It makes life easy because you'll be able to copy and paste some of the queries from the document straight into the window. Additionally, as well as part of this this lab exercise, I'll give you some login credentials, and we'll share that with you shortly. And I'll just, when we actually get to that stage, I'll just call a couple of things out with regards to the format of the username. And then I'll talk to you guys about giving me confirmation in the chat window that you're logged in and everything is okay. So with that, let me find out where my presentation has gone. It's just disappeared on me. Apologies for that. Okay. All right, so let me just jump in there and give you a quick introduction. I'm going to actually, Tony, I'm going to let you go first.
Sure, thanks, Stefan, and thanks everyone for joining. So my name is Tony Trin, Senior Partner Solution Architect at AWS. I work very closely with ISV partner like Sumo Logic to build a great solution together between AWS and Sumo Logic and bring the best solution to help you, our joint customer, our mutual customer, to solve your problem, overcome your challenges, and achieve your business outcome. Back to you, Stefan.
Great, thanks, Tony. Yeah, hi everyone. So my name is Stefan Tapp. I'm the security lead for the APAC region for Sumo Logic. I essentially look after everything that's to do with our Cloud SIEM solution and Cloud SOAR. And I cover everywhere from India, right the way across to Japan, up to China, and down to New Zealand. So I'm incredibly lucky to have such a big region to look after. I've been with Sumo for about 18 months. I primarily work direct with our customer base when we're talking about proof of concept, proof of values, and general discussions around security operations. I've been in security operations, I guess, for some 20 years now, everything from a SOC analyst through to building security operations teams and solutions and so on and so on. So feel free, if you have any questions at any time as well, just pop them into the Q&A section for me. If you could do that instead of the chat one, it's just a little bit easier for us to be able to go in and answer those. Also on the call with me today, sorry I don't have his details up on the screen there, is my colleague Suresh. So Suresh is based in India, primarily does the same role as I do, focused on our core platform and security. So Suresh will be in the background answering any questions that we have that pop up as well. Okay. So with that, I'm going to jump forward to the next slide. So the goal really of this actual session is to provide you guys with some experiences on the, on the Sumo Logic Cloud SIEM powered by AWS solutions that we have. So hopefully it'll let you, get an understanding of what we do, where we may be able to help you within your own environments, etc. It's going to give you some hands. Here is, to kind of identify a little bit of a training solution around the platform as well. I'm not going to skip, or actually I'm going to skip through some of these. Hopefully you've had a chance to kind of read through some of these as well. So, some of this is kind of aimed at our partners, some of it's aimed direct with our customers, etc. Okay, so today's agenda, we'll expand on this a little bit more actually in a second to give you some kind of time frames of how long to expect for each session. So first of all, we're going to give you an introduction into Cloud SIEM and AWS and Sumo Logic. Then we're going to go through and do a couple of labs. So the first lab itself is going to be on our Cloud SIEM powered by AWS. Then what we'll do is we'll take a short break. After the break, we're going to come back and look at our advanced SIEM powered by AWS. It does say on the screen there about a certification exam. I'll talk a little bit around how you can go in and do some of that, but that's not something that we're going to do as part of this session today. I'm kind of mindful of everybody's time and I don't want to take up your entire afternoon listening to me waffle on. So I will give you links to that information and so on. And then finally, we'll have a quick Q&A session. So at that point, any questions you have, please feel free to pop them into the Q&A window and we'll go through and answer as many of those as we can. Of course, feel free to do that as we go through as well. Any questions you have as we're working through, just pop them into there and we'll answer those for you. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to hand back to Tony just to talk to you around the AWS side, and then I will be back with you shortly.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Stefan. So now I'm going to talk about the security reference architecture as well as AWS best practices for multi-account deployment on AWS. And the reason as AWS we recommend multiple account deployment is because we want you to set up the best security posture, reduce the blast radius in case if there's any problem happen, it is enclosed in one particular account, one particular area. And also it's helped you to control costs, right? And we do that by providing you with AWS organization. And with AWS organization, you can divide your organization into different OU or organizational unit to manage the access, cost, and guardrail. And under each of this OU, you can have multiple accounts. Each account will serve a particular purpose. For example, the organizational management account is used to create the AWS auth, the security OU that has two specific accounts. One is security tooling, and the two is a log archival account. The name are pretty self-descriptive. So security tooling account, which I will talk in detail a little later, is to host security tooling and guardrail. The log archival obviously is to store all of your access log, CloudTrail, CloudWatch log, or VPC flow log for auditing purposes, or also to protect the log from being altered or sort of delete or remove from accident or by malicious factor. And we also have the infrastructure OU, where the network account and the shared services account are hosted. This is where you set up share services across multiple OU and across your entire organization. And last but not least, we have the workload OU with the workload account, where you host all of your application, like either a web server application or containerized microservices, or your serverless API, machine learning, etc. Now I'll dive a little deeper into the security tooling account and the log archival account, which is our main focus for today. I mean security. Right. So Stefan, could you please switch on to the next slide?
Yeah, no problem. I just noticed my screen has just disappeared. Sorry, guys, bear with me 2 seconds. Let me just try that again. Downside of having multiple screens. Okay, so let's try going on to the next slide. There you go. Right. Can you guys see that? Oh no, there we go. Try that again. I'm having a few technical glitches here today. Hang on a second.
Well, as long as it's not a security problem, we're still good.
Yeah, let's hope not. Actually, whilst I'm talking as well, is my audio a little bit clearer? I got a couple of notes there to say that my audio was breaking up a little bit. So is that a little bit clearer?
Yep, it's all good now. And thanks, Stefan. So as I mentioned, the security tooling account is where you host all of the central security service, where you have the delegated administrator account for security service. And over here in this security tooling account, you can set up consistent guardrail for centralized management. So instead of going into each of your accounts, set up config rule, set up different policy, you can set all of them up in here in this central account, and then manage your security, the security of your AWS organization from here using services like GuardDuty. So GuardDuty will help you to detect unauthorized access from malicious factor, or Security Hub, which is the central hub for you to detect all of the security event. Like for example, if someone accidentally convert a private S3 bucket into a public bucket, or if someone provide an over permissive security group, like allow the whole internet to SSH into your bastion host, Security Hub will be able to highlight those events, and then based on those events, you can craft your remediation or your response. Like for example, you can have a Lambda function there to respond to the S3 public bucket by making it private, or you can have a Lambda function to remove the over permissive permission of the security group and limit the access to your bastion host to really a very specific group of IP address or another security group, right? Or you could set up the centralized set of rule using AWS config and then apply it across the whole organization, right? Or you can do a IAM access scanning using IAM access analyzer, right? Obviously you can manage your key here using AWS KMS. So if you want to if you want to rotate your key or encrypt your key, you can keep all of them centralized in this account using KMS. Right. And then last but not least, you always have Macie for Amazon Macie to detect any PII or PHI that has been accidentally stored in your S3 bucket or other storage services. So there's a lot of things that you can do with security tooling account, but if there's one thing you want to remember about this, is that instead of going through multiple account, multiple OU to set up security guardrail, you can do everything in here and then apply it across the org, right? Now, let me talk a bit about the log archival account. Next slide, please. Thanks, Stefan. So the log archival account, or some people prefer to call data bunker account. The main purpose here is that we want to store, we want to encourage you, AWS customer, to store all of the log, either be it DNS log or access log or CloudTrail, CloudWatch log or VPC flow log into a central repo. It usually be an S3 bucket or multiple S3 bucket within one single account. And the purpose is that you protect your log to make them immutable and durable, right? So in case if one of your, say for example, your application account is compromised, you still have all of this log on who accessed what and what have they done to your application account stored in this log archival account. So you can go back, do a bit of backtracking, backtracing, identifying if there's anything wrong happened, or was it just really a pure accident. And then on the other hand, you can provide read-only access to this log archival account to auditor, the people who want to come into your organization, and making sure that you are doing everything you can to protect your customer information. And then this is the place where you can point of those auditors to go to and then come through the log. And you can rest assured that all of this log are immutable and they has not been altered with, right? Now, in the next slide, please. I'm going to talk about, very slightly, very briefly about the setup of Sumo Logic Cloud SIEM on AWS. So as you can see from the AWS organization management account, you can nominate a guard duty delegated admin per region. And then from the guard duty delegated admin console, right, you can enable guard duty for current and all of the member accounts. So remember that in an AWS organization, you have multiple member accounts, as I have explained earlier. Each of the member guard duty finding will flow into guard duty delegated admin account as CloudWatch event. And using CloudWatch event rule, you can trigger Sumo Logic guard duty event process Lambda function. So as I mentioned very earlier, once you got all of this security events centralized in your security account, you can do a lot of things to remediate the security risk, right? Or at least, alert a team for them to action on it, right? But, with Sumo Logic guard duty event processor, right? CloudWatch event pass the finding to Sumo hosted collector, and then from there, Sumo Logic can perform multiple actions to help you to bring back the best security posture. And the detail on how Sumo Logic, achieve those is what Stefan gonna walk you through the rest of the Brazil as well as the demo. So back to you, Stefan.
That's great. Thanks, Tony. Let me just move on to the next blank slide. Okay, cool. All right, let me kind of set the scene a little bit for you, I guess, with regards to to what Sumo Logic is and where we typically help our customers. So when it comes to security operations, there's kind of three key challenge areas that we typically see with our customers. So the first one you can see there is multi-cloud support. And the challenge there is that a lot of kind of legacy SIEM platforms weren't really designed for cloud solutions, and that's certainly been my experience with some SIEM platforms that I've worked with in the past. They were really designed to collect on-premise logs. So having connectors to be able to reach into cloud sources, whether that's AWS, Azure, Google, or even things like Okta, Azure AD, and just some of those simple kind of log sources themselves has become quite difficult with some of those legacy platforms. So traditionally, that kind of side of it is going away. We have more and more customers now and more organizations that are moving towards a cloud solution for their SIEM platform. So not only is it cloud hosted, but it also has deeper integration and easier integration with cloud itself. The second point here is that shift in the threat landscape. So, here we're seeing that move from traditional on-premise attack surfaces. Somebody being able to find a vulnerability through an open port on a firewall, reaching into your environment, and then taking over an administrator role, or getting malware into your environment in some of those traditional ways, coming in via email or on an infected USB stick, etc. Whilst they still exist, the new threat landscape is shifting to that cloud. So, we all hear stories of unsecured access in the cloud, unsecured buckets sharing information publicly that shouldn't be. But additionally now as well, there's a whole heap of different attack vectors. API connectivity is something there that can be exploited, etc. So we now have this kind of shift where not only are we still focusing on legacy on-premise for customers that are in that transition to the cloud, but now we've got this bigger area to look after as well. And that kind of doubles back, I guess, on that multi-cloud support for traditional SIEM platforms. It's making sure I have that visibility of this new attack vector and landscape as well. And of course, that leads on to the third point. We know alert fatigue's been a real challenge for security operations teams for a long time, certainly for as long as I can remember. It's always been a challenge keeping up with the sheer volume of alerts that are being generated. And that's before we even bring in these cloud sources. Now I have a whole heap of new log sources coming into the platform that are all generating alerts. They're all things that my teams need to be able to go in and investigate. So essentially, we're able to address a lot of these issues with our Cloud SIEM powered by AWS. We reduce that complexity and the blind spots by having very easy collector methods and connectors to be able to reach into those cloud sources. For example, I can go in and I can be gathering log sources from AWS or Google or wherever else within a matter of minutes, using our cloud hosted collectors. And also I can have that visibility still across legacy and cloud. It's not one or the other. I can ingest all of those logs into my SIEM platform, and I have that ability to be able to look across all of those, to be able to report across all of those log sources, and indeed correlate across all of those as well if I need to. We also reduce alert fatigue within the platform by using some kind of modern edge technologies within our advanced cloud SIEM platform, which we're going to have a pretty in-depth look at a little bit later on. We have something called an insight capability. So insights are a mechanism for me to look at hundreds of thousands of alerts that are coming into the platform and actually start to group and prioritize those according to the entity involved, whether that's a user, a host, or an IP, etc. So we're able to reduce that alert fatigue by giving, more actionable, higher fidelity alerts as we come in and start to do our investigations. So essentially we have two options here with our Cloud SIEM powered by AWS, and it depends very much on what a customer is looking for, what you guys need to achieve from your SIEM platform. So for example, some SIEM platforms need to be able to centralize log centrally for me, to give me that centralized visibility. I want to be able to run dashboards to look at, who's logging in, what number of logins am I getting, and to be able to kind of go in and create reporting and so on. So Cloud SIEM allows you to do that by accelerating the detection. I mentioned how quickly it was to be able to get log sources in, for example. And as we'll see when I jump in and do a demo in a second, and you guys get some time in the tool as well, very quickly I can add an app from the catalog and get visibility over my log sources incredibly quickly. It's also compliant ready as well. So the entire platform is it's attested for PCI, HIPAA, etc. So I don't need to worry about, if I'm a financial organization or a retailer and I need to bring PCI logs in and adhere to PCI, is my service provider, the hosting provider, whether, with that being AWS, of course, and then Sumo Logic, we are PCI compliant, and we have the various attestations for that as well. Comparing Amazon Guard Duty findings here. Now, this is an interesting one. Because we are a cloud native solution, there's quite a few areas within Sumo Logic that we're able to do kind of global intelligence. So we do that with things like Guard Duty, our confidence scoring within Cloud SIEM itself. We kind of achieve that by, we take all of the information from our customer base anonymously. So when I'm running things like the Guard Duty global intelligence dashboards, it's actually comparing my environment against other companies. So it's saying, hey, actually, I'm seeing more of this Guard Duty alert than somebody else of a similar environment. So we have that kind of global intelligence, which is really cool. And we kind of bring that across into the Cloud SIEM Advanced as well. And I'll talk a bit about that as we go through. TCO is lower because it's cloud native. Okay, so there's no on-premise solution. There's no hosting within a data center. And typically, I don't have to have the same volume of people looking after the SIEM platform. I think about some of the legacy platforms I've had to work with, and a typical SOC team would be, 2 or 3 levels of security analyst. I'd have to have a SIEM engineer that looks after the updating of the SIEM, maybe a content engineer creating correlation rules, tuning it, etc. We don't really need, we don't have a lot of that within the cloud native solution. We spin it up, we keep it up to date, we curate content. Yes, I still have the ability to go in and create custom content if I need to, but a lot of that kind of strain and pain points are taken away for me, okay, by having the cloud native solution. And then the final point here for Cloud SIEM is that it integrates with pretty much any data source across any cloud, SaaS or on-premise environment. Stepping up then to Cloud SIEM Advanced. So what Cloud SIEM Advanced brings on top of this is the ability to normalize and enrich all of my data sources at great scale. So if I'm bringing log sources in from 50 different products, I have the ability here to normalize the username to one value. I can enrich those events with additional context. If it's an Active Directory user, I can bring in additional Active Directory context. If I'm running an EDR solution like CrowdStrike, Carbon Black, I could also bring enrichment in for the host and present a whole stack of information there. Even something like, if I have an account with VirusTotal, I can leverage an API key that will, every time a signal or an alert is generated, it'll reach out to VirusTotal. It'll do a lookup of the file hash or the IP to get the reputation and bring that back into the alert for me and enrich that, in real time. So it saves me time then as an analyst having to copy and paste an IP or a hash file and then paste it into an external website, do a lookup, and then kind of, keep that as a separate part of my investigation. Entity-based correlation. So this is that insight capability I talked about. We essentially track that entity. So if I've got a user that's performing some unusual activity, some bad activity, and they're generating multiple signals, the insight clustering keeps a track of what that user is doing, okay? And it does it over a longer time period as well. So I have the ability there to look for low and slow attacks, something that's traditionally quite difficult to do on a legacy SIEM platform. And then finally here, prioritizing my investigations. So we do that in several ways. One is the insight capability that's looking at hundreds of thousands of alerts and saying, hey, here's like a dozen things you need to investigate today. So that's prioritizing those for me. But then additionally, I have that global intelligence scoring as well that's looking at that insight when it's generated, comparing it with other customers that we have within Sumo Logic. And then it comes back and says, actually, we're like 95% confident this is a real incident. So that helps me, again, prioritize to the next level, on what I need to investigate. And of course, the end goal of that as well is to minimize false positives and reduce that alert fatigue problem that we have. Okay, so let's have a quick run through then of what we're going to do. We've kind of covered off that introduction. Next thing I'm going to do is to give you a quick security demo of the interface for Cloud SIEM. We'll talk a little bit around some of the analytics. We'll talk about the guard duty application. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to install the CrowdStrike Threat Intel app and show you how easy that is as well. We're going to test a couple of things. So this is where you guys are going to have some hands-on time as well to do this. What we'll do then is we'll take a quick kind of breather and a coffee break or tea break, whatever your fancy is. And then when we come back, we'll take a look then at the Cloud SIEM Advanced. I'll give you a quick overview of the product. Then we'll do a guided investigation, and then I'm going to let you guys loose on it to actually go and look at an incident or an insight. And then we'll kind of recap after that, have a look at what that insight was. What did you find? What do you think the cause of that particular insight was, or that incident? Then we'll do a quick summary and a wrap up from there. All right, okay, so let's have a quick kind of overview then, I guess, of what Sumo Logic is. We kind of cover 4 key areas here. And they are, operational intelligence. So I have the ability there to be able to ingest logs pretty much from anything. So it gives me an operational view of, how my devices are behaving in the network. So an example there might be if I'm running VMs on a VM where I can bring in the VM logs and I can monitor those as an operational log. Next one there is security intelligence. So obviously that allows me to do things like, threat intelligence lookup using the built-in CrowdStrike app, and we'll talk a bit about that as we go through. Give me that comprehensive dashboarding, that visibility over who's logging in from where, what times are they logging in, what's my firewalls doing, who's doing activity in AWS, CloudTrail or Guard Duty, etc. Business intelligence, this is aimed at organizations where they're monitoring logs from, various different systems. So an example, maybe a retailer, online presence, they send all of their logs into Sumo, and then they're monitoring to make sure that the customer's whole checkout process is working correctly. They can get alerts if there's multiple abandoned carts in the checkout process. It also gives them visibility as well. If they get to, Black Friday, Cyber Monday, they're getting increasing in logs. We're able to bring all of that in, scale up and down accordingly, and bring all of that business intelligence in as well. And then the last point there is that global intelligence. So I talked a little bit around the AWS global intelligence that we, that we support, and also how we use that within Cloud SIEM as well. So essentially the data sources, we can take anything from apps, microservices, cloud systems, SaaS service, mobile devices, and any other kind of third-party apps coming in. So I can pretty much ingest anything. We support all different log formats, whether it's syslog, JSON, Ceph, Leaf, even raw, raw logs coming in from a file being tailed, etc. Okay, it's easy to bring all of those in and work with those logs. So we then have various kind of levels of analytics laying over the top of that. Multi-tenant. So I've just noticed my slide is completely out of line in context there. So it should say we're multi-tenant and scalable. So essentially what that means is every customer for Sumo Logic has their own instance of Sumo Logic, okay? Then when I'm bringing logs in as a customer, if I need to increase my log activity, again, going back to maybe a retail customer that's logging, 50 times more events on a cyber weekend, Black Friday, our scalability there scales up automatically, completely transparent to the customer. So we scale up to allow for extra ingest, any extra queries that are being run by analysts, extra logins, more people on the tool, keeping track of what's happening. And then when that volume decreases, we just scale back down again. Okay, so the good thing about having a SaaS solution like Sumo Logic is I don't need to worry too much about sizing it for what my peak ingest is going to be. Okay, we don't worry about that kind of thing. So additionally here, we do a lot of API integrations. We can, leverage APIs for bringing logs in, and obviously APIs for pushing actions back out as well. We do a lot of security analytics on some of those logs. So we have a couple of features within Cloud SIEM itself that does things like log reduce. It'll take 50,000 log lines and actually do a comparison and say, well, actually, 50 of these are similar, 100 of these are similar, and it'll do that comparison of what it's seeing within the logs. So I don't then have to look at 50,000 logs. I can look at a shorter subset of those. Sorry, that's log compare. No, I get it right. That is log reduce. Log compare allows me to take a subset of logs, compare that with a set of logs from the previous day. So for example, if I've got issues with a customer now, and I'm getting lots of abandoned carts in a checkout, or from a security perspective, I'm getting loads of failed logins today compared to yesterday, what I can do is I can use that log compare and say, hey, let's compare two sets of logs and see what's happened. So in the context of the retail customer, if a new piece of code was pushed out and it's broken the checkout process, then I can look at that in context with what's happening. From a security side, if a change was made yesterday, and I'm now generating more failed logins compared to yesterday, it's an easier way for me to be able to compare that and troubleshoot what the problem is. Okay. Moving on down there then to the kind of, your people who uses our platform. Pretty much everyone from, DevOps, engineering, IT ops, customer success, they're tracking response times to, responding to customer times on various systems, etc. Product teams, data scientists coming in and using our extensive query platform to be able to do data modeling. And then finally, security operations, which is kind of what we're all about, being able to get that centralized visibility and, do that threat detection and correlation, etc. So essentially, this gets broken down into three key areas. So the first one, again, this is a security focus now. Sorry, I should have pointed that out. Audit and compliance. Okay, so I have a requirement to log everything centrally. It needs to be able to meet PCI compliances. So I can go in and look at my PCI, look at a specific requirement, make sure that I am, logging according with that PCI or ISO 27001, etc. The next step up then is using Cloud SIEM, where I start to have the ability to do pretty comprehensive searches. I can build dashboards and alerts. I have the capability of the app catalog to simply add an application. Maybe that's for AWS Guard Duty, might be for a Palo Alto firewall, etc. Just to give me that visibility over what those log sources are doing. And then those advanced analytics that I mentioned, log compare, log reduce, and then things like the global intelligence for Guard Duty, etc. And then the final one here then is Cloud SIEM Advanced. That allows me to do that threat correlation. It combines the workflow in there as well, so it's easy for me to actually go in, assign incidents, work on them, etc. And then automate that investigation phase using that insight capability that we talked about. Okay, there is one other thing that we do actually, which isn't mentioned on here, which is our Cloud SOAR product. I saw a question pop up there, which Suresh answered. So we do have a Cloud SOAR product. as well. Okay, and that integrates really nicely with either of our Cloud SIEM or Cloud SIEM advanced solutions there. Let me just skip through that slide. Okay, so the bit that we're going to have a look at here, first of all, then, is our Cloud SIEM, and that allows me to do searching, dashboards and alerts, and advanced analytics. Okay, and we'll step forward there in a second and take a dive in and have a look at those. Just before I do, you've heard me talk about our app catalog. So pretty much everything in our app catalog is included as part of our product. There are one or two items in there which require some additional help from Sumo Logic to set up. So there's a little bit of like professional services that's required for some of those, but that's only kind of one or two in our entire catalog of several hundred applications. Okay, so from that screenshot you can see there, there's quite a wide variety that we go through. You know, everything from all of the AWS log sources that I would expect to bring in, Active Directory, Google, you know, PCI dashboards that we talked about under that compliance part, and then threat intel as well. So you can see it's pretty comprehensive, and when we jump in, actually, you guys will be able to have a bit of a play around in that environment and look for yourselves as well. Okay, so what we're actually going to do is we are going to jump in and look a little bit at the threat intel quick analysis as well. So this particular part here is included as part of our solution, and our threat intelligence is provided by CrowdStrike. Now, the real benefit of this being included is that I can actually leverage this threat intel across any log source that I bring into the platform. Typically in a security world, right, we tend to look at threat intel across security log sources. But within Cloud SIEM itself, you know, I can look further than that. And I'll give you an example. The customer I was working with recently, they were bringing DevOps logs into their environment, and they hadn't had any visibility over the DevOps logs previously. But when they actually brought them into the platform and they ran the threat intel across all of their log sources, it came back and told them that some of their devices within DevOps were actually communicating to a known malicious IP, so command and control server. And then upon further investigation, they had multiple compromised hosts within their DevOps environment. You know, they had no visibility of that because they traditionally were not logs that they would bring into, you know, something like a legacy SIEM platform. But by being able to leverage this threat intel across every log source, you know, very quickly it brought this to light for them, and they were able to kind of go in and remediate that particular issue. So it's a really powerful part of the product. Okay, so with that, then let me jump across into the demo environment. Let me just change my screen share a second. Bear with me 2 seconds. Make sure I get the right one. Okay, cool. All right. So this is kind of a landing page for Cloud SIEM itself. When I come into this particular screen here, there's a few kind of areas that I can go to. We have some quick access buttons here. Allows me to launch into a log search. I can go in and look at metrics, traces. I can do live tail of logs, create a new dashboard, etc., etc. These other 4 panels here are going to highlight, you know, what I've looked at previously. So any previous dashboards I've viewed, any recently run searches, any pinned searches, etc. Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through, actually. First of all, I think we'll have a look at the AWS security dashboard. So let me come through and find that. So if I just do a quick search here for AWS. And you can see that I've got various dashboards here that are already installed for me. Okay, so I'm going to have a look at something like CloudTrail. So when I come into CloudTrail, as part of this application that was installed previously, it's given me multiple options here. Okay, so I have sub dashboards that will drill down to specific areas. So as you can see here, I can look at console logins. I can look at network and security, operational, a general overview of everything. And then I can look at user monitoring as well. Okay, and this is just from the CloudTrail one. So if I click on the overview dashboard, let that load up there for a second. As it starts to build these out, you can see some of the typical kind of dashboards we have within Sumo. And a lot of these, although this app itself is specific to AWS, you can run similar kind of dashboards with other products as well. If I've got a firewall and I want to look to see where my IPs are connecting from, I can have a Mapbox component, as you can see here, that gives me that location. And I can drill down through here as well. Okay, I can zoom in, zoom out. I can click on specific countries and just dive down and drill a bit deeper as well. So this overview dashboard is also giving me the top 10 users in my CloudTrail environment. I don't have any failed logins here at the moment over the last 24 hours. And then I can see a quick snapshot view here of some of the other activity that's happening. Okay, so created and deleted network accounts, deleted resources over time, created resources, etc. Okay. If I choose something like the network and security side, again, it loads that up for me pretty quickly. And you can see, I've got some different things here to view. Some of these are not populating, probably because my time frame actually is not deep enough. So I can modify the view here that I'm looking from. This is saying that each panel actually has a time frame. So if I want to look at authorization failures over time, this is currently looking at the last 24 hours. If I want to go back further, maybe to 3 days, I can just come down, click on 3 days, okay, and then that will refresh that search for me and drill down a bit deeper. Same thing with this one. If I go out to maybe 7 days, hopefully it'll come back with some information. No, okay. You kind of get the idea. So I can come in here and actually modify my panel time frame and look back to anything I want. I've got set time windows here that I can view, but alternatively I can come down and create a custom view back as well. If I wanted to look at everything that's happened from 10 p.m. to 1 a.m. on a specific day, then I have the ability to be able to go in and do that as well. Okay. And let's have another quick one here then, something like global. Let's have a look at the global intelligence one. You've heard me talk about this one a little bit. So if I come into CloudTrail and I want to compare my MITRE attack areas compared to my peers, not having much luck here today. Let me try a greater time window. I'm in a slightly different demo environment here. I apologize. I'm not in my normal one, which is populated with loads of information. So it might be a case that that's not going to show that for me. Actually, let me jump across, not do that a second. I don't want to start talking about something and then find I can't show it to you. So bear with me 2 seconds. Okay, so log in. And if let's do a search here for global. Okay, so global intelligence for CloudTrail, let's try again. And we were looking at the MITRE ones. Here we go, that's better. So essentially here, I'm not sure how many of you guys actually use the MITRE attack framework in your environments. It's pretty popular. Most customers I work with tend to use MITRE as the framework for benchmarking where they are in their environments. So this particular CloudTrail is using that global intelligence that we talked about. And what it's doing here is it's looking at what I'm triggering within my environment, and it's comparing that with my cohorts. Okay, so this is that anonymous details that we bring in from other Sumo customers. So I can benchmark my environment against other customers. Here, for example, you can see these red boxes are my environment. And the kind of purple and gray and brown lines here are my cohorts. So I can see I have a particular problem here with CloudTrail disabled trails as a defensive agent. Coming down here to credential access, again, you can see I have a couple of areas here where I seem to have a problem compared to, to other customers, etc. So these are really good for getting an understanding of what do we look like compared to everybody else. One other really useful thing here as well to talk about is the action plan. So again, this kind of calls out some of the key things that are happening in your environment, but it gives you a recommendation as well on how to fix them. So if I have a problem with excessive permissions, aligned with the persistence framework stage, you can see, my event count is pretty high compared to my cohorts. And then it'll give me information here on how to go resolve that problem. So that's pretty good. It's really useful to be able to go in and do some benchmarking there against other organizations. Okay. So have a quick look at the app catalog while we're in here. So, as you can see here, it's pretty comprehensive. This first page obviously is giving us quite a bit of information around AWS as our sources. So you can see we cover pretty much everything here as an AWS source, from CloudTrail to ELBs, Lambda, Security Hub, Guard Duty, etc., VPCs. These are all apps that I can bring into the platform. And I'll take you through one of those actually in a second on how easy it is to install one of those. Okay. Actually, I'll do that now. Let's jump back into the other demo environment. So if I wanted to add CloudTrail, for example, what I do is I come into the app catalog, I click on CloudTrail, I get a quick preview here of the dashboards that are included. So I can have a look through and go, yeah, actually, these are what I'm looking for. I want to see console logins, I want to see network and security alerts and so on. Then what I do is click on Add to Library. Okay, what it's going to do is ask me for the source category. So think of source category here as the folder where I'm sending those log sources in. So hopefully as I scroll down through here, there should be a Lab Cloud CloudTrail. Okay, so I click on that one, click on Add to Library. And then within a couple of minutes, hopefully a bit quicker, it will add that in. There we go. Okay. And if I go to my personal folder, you can see that CloudTrail has now been added. Okay. And again, if I come through here, I should be able to look at these logs. I pointed it to the wrong source. Apologies for that. But I would be able to come in here and view that source. Okay, so that's kind of how quick and easy it is to add something from the app catalog. And as I scroll down through here quickly, you can see some other examples from other log sources that we can bring in as well. If I'm looking at microservices, Kubernetes, Docker, etc., then we have applications for each of those, and then all the way down through as well. Okay, so everything down to kind of Zoom and Zscaler, etc. Okay. So that's kind of a quick overview, I guess, of the platform. Let me just jump back again to my presentation, and then I'll share some login credentials with you. One of those days today, I can't find where to share. There we go. All right, no problem. Okay, so yeah, these are some of those combined views that we get there as well. So on to the training environment itself. So let me leave this up on the screen here for a second. Now, in the chat window, hopefully you've all seen that file that I've sent you. You've been able to download it and open that up. So at the very top of that document, you'll see the URL there, which is the same as what's on the screen at the moment. For the username, if you can use that format, training plus analyst, and then type in any 3 random numbers, okay, anything from 001 up to 500. What I would ask you to do is, if you could just, when you pick a 3-digit number, if you can just drop that into the chat window, that'll just make sure we don't get any duplicates of somebody using the same login. So yeah, if you can do that, yeah, thanks Fernando and 002, that's awesome, thank you. I'm logged in with 419, by the way, so I guess I should make you aware of that. Okay. All right, give me a couple more seconds to be able to go through and do that. All right, thanks, Toby. So essentially what should happen is when you're logged in, it should land you on the home page view, as you can, as you saw when we logged in. I'll take you to that screen in a second when we step through. Okay, so I'm hoping that you're all logged in there. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next slide, but in the chat window there, you should find the instructions there as well. So, yeah, good question, Fernando. Let me double check. I think there is actually. Let's have a look. Yeah, actually, I might get Suresh to answer that question for you. I can't see it there for a second. Okay, all right, no problem. So let's jump in then and get you guys to start doing a couple of things. So, okay, all right, no problem. So the first thing we're going to do is to do some threat intel installing. So what I'll get you to do is, let me just share my screen back to the demo environment. I'll get you to kind of follow me through on what we're doing. So, okay. If you can come to your home screen, okay, and then click on the app catalog, which is over here in the left-hand side, okay. Then just do a quick search for threat in the search window. And actually what we're going to install here is the threat intel for AWS. Actually, no, we won't. Sorry, I just realized I don't have the links for the AWS. So let's go with the threat intel quick analysis. So if you can click on threat intel quick analysis for me. Okay, that should take you to this window here where we're going to do the add to library, and then click on add to library. For source category, if you can just put in a single star or asterisk. And essentially what that's doing is that's telling my application, actually, I want you to look at every data source that we're bringing in, okay? So once you've popped that star in there to source category, click on add to library. It'll take a couple of seconds there, and then it should install that one for me. Yeah, that's great. So hopefully you can all see a pretty similar screen then to what I've got there. So let's take a look at the overview dashboard to start with. So if you haven't found it or you haven't got to it already, click on the personal icon near the top of the screen there, so you can see where I'm hovering over this one. And then that should give you that Threat Intel Quick Analysis dashboard. And then if you can come down and click on the overview dashboard for me. And then we'll just give that a second to load. That should just be looking over the last 15 minutes, which will be fine. So I'm hoping you get some similar results to what I've got on the screen here. Okay. So let me give you a quick kind of run through of what we're looking at here. Essentially what this is saying is over the last 15 minutes, I've looked at 1 million log lines that I've ingested into the platform. From those 1 million log lines, I found 33.9 thousand IP threat counts. So there's 33.9 cases of something communicating to a known bad IP. I really hope in your own real environments you never see anything quite as high as that, but there are 1 or 2 cases out there. Second one then is I can see 2,470 file hash matches within the environment. I've got 147 URLs that are matching known bad. Actually, no, it's just gone up 172. 6 email threat counts and 643 domain threat counts. So 643 cases where I'm connecting out to a known malicious domain. Now I can click on any of these and drill down a little bit deeper. So feel free to click on whatever one you want to. Okay, I'm gonna click on the URL threat count here, for example, but you guys can have a play and click on whatever you want to. What that'll do is it'll drill me down into another set of dashboards. And then the information on this screen is going to be pretty similar, dependent on what you clicked on. It'll still be pretty relevant here. It gives me that list of threat counts. It's going to give me the threat sources here, for example. Okay, so I can see, you know, already building up here. I've got detections from my Cisco Meraki logs, from my ELBs, and so on and so on. Okay, and again, I can filter these down by clicking on any of these, so it will specifically filter that view for me. I have my malicious confidence here, so that could be high, medium, low, etc. Things like threat actors, it'll populate that for me as well. And then down the bottom here is where we get some really useful information. Okay, so my threat table is giving me the URL that we're connecting to that's known bad, gives me that malicious confidence level. The actors are unassigned here, so it could be that within CrowdStrike's threat intel, it's not assigning an actor to those particular threats currently. Here's my log sources where I'm seeing these events from, and then here's the label that's being extracted from the threat intel source from CrowdStrike. So it's telling me, you know, the attack, you know, tactics, techniques that are being used as part of this particular threat. What type of threat it is, whether it's a Trojan, info stealer, kill chain, command and control, etc. Okay. So again, just to kind of point out here, this is looking across all of my log sources. So not just my security ones that I would traditionally have in a normal platform. I'm looking at pretty much everything here, which is really cool. Okay. We're going to kind of change track a little bit here now. And what I want to do is just kind of give you some demonstrations of running queries within the environment and kind of give you a bit of an understanding of how our queries are constructed and so on. So if I could get you to click on the home page, and by the way, you know, these login credentials here are going to be valid for a little while. So by all means, you know, you can come in here and have a play and do whatever you want to do. It's really not a problem at all. So cut back to the home page. If you can click on the log search icon for me at the top. And then if you can refer back to that document that I've shared with you. Okay, so the first search that we're going to do, hey Tony, yeah, no problem. Thanks for your time, and look forward to catching up with you a bit later. Yeah, sorry guys, so just in case you didn't see the post, Tony's got to drop off for another call, so you'll just be left with myself and Suresh. Okay, so jumping back into what we were doing then. So under activity 1, if you can copy that search code that's in the window there, okay. Let me just copy that for you and drop it into the chat window as well. So pop that into there, then you can copy and paste it from there as well. Okay. So if you paste that into the search window at the top there, let me just close up some of these a second. And once you've pasted it into the search window, just hit the search query icon at the top. Okay, we'll look over the last 15 minutes. That's fine. That's all we need to look back over. And then hopefully you've got the same screen as I have here. So this is giving me an aggregated view now of the information I've asked it to look for. Okay, so what I'm looking here is for successful logins and the IPs that they have logged in from. And this is specifically looking now at my CloudTrail as my log source, which you can see here. And it's specifically looking for the console login as my activity type or my action. Okay. And these, of course, are all completely customizable, configurable. You know, you can play with these and do whatever you want to do to look for other, other activities and so on. Okay. So my search results are returned down below. Like I said, these are aggregated, so I can see that this user ARN has logged in from this IP address 53 times, for example. Okay, so that's like a quick example there of how we do a fairly raw basic search. What we're going to do there is we're going to append something onto this search now, and that's in step 2 of activity 1. Again, I'll grab this and pop it into the chat window for you to copy. So what you need to do is in your query window, okay, just click underneath the last entry there, okay, and I need to do a pipe. Oops, I hope if I did that properly. Space and paste that in. Actually, ignore what I said, it's going to put the pipe in for me. And then, sorry, if that puts that in that same format, you'll just need to, it depends if you guys are using a Mac, just do Option Return. If you're using a Windows machine, it's Control and Return, I think. And that'll bring you down here to a new line. Okay, so your pipe, each of those pipes is on a new line, sorry. Okay, so your query should look like that. Now, if I rerun it, it's actually going to give me the geolocations for these logins. Okay, so here's my latitudes and longitudes, for example. Okay. So that's just an example there where we can actually use a geo lookup against those IP addresses. And again, this is all built into the platform as well. So I can do a geo lookup there. If I wanted to go through and do some more fancy dashboarding, I can actually build out a table here, for example. Okay, so I clicked on that little pin icon there, the map icon, and you can see it's now changed my view now to a world map, and I can see those login activities in that view. Okay, and again, this particular query, for example, you could drop this as a panel into any dashboard. You could just create a new panel, drop it in. It's all completely customizable. Okay. All right, no problem. If you can, next of all, just click on New at the top. We're going to run a new search now, which is that step 2 or activity 2. Okay. And again, just copy that search query and drop that into your new search. click on new and log search. Okay, and then let's run that over the last 15 minutes. And it should return this result that you can see on the screen here. Okay. Now, what this particular query is doing is I'm saying, hey, I want you to look up this IP address as my threat. And I want you to go to the CrowdStrike threat intel database that we have in the product and bring back some additional information on it for me. Okay. So you can see as part of that message there, it's actually bringing some additional information back as well from that particular event. Okay. The next one then, very quickly before we take a quick 5-minute break or so, and then we'll jump back in onto the Cloud SIEM Advanced. If you come down to step 2 there, again, just copy that search query, okay, and just drop it in as a new line and run that query. It does the same thing. That's great. Okay, I don't know why it's done that. It's supposed to give me different information. All right, I apologize for that. I don't know why that's done that. It should have given me some different responses. Just having a quick look for anything obvious. No. Okay, that's weird. But yeah, no, okay. All right, we'll skip that because we're kind of running tight to time, so I apologize. All right, no worries. Let's take a quick 5-minute break if that's okay with you guys. What time is it now? 12 minutes past. So let's come back at 17 minutes past, and then we'll very quickly jump in then for the last 10 minutes and have a quick look at Cloud SIEM Advanced, and I'll kind of show you a little bit there around the insight capability. Okay, so I will see you back here in about 5 minutes. Okay, cool. Let's start getting a few things ready here. All right, no problem. Yeah, guys. So, like I said, those login details that we've shared with you, feel free to use those and come in and have a play. Normally, they'll be live for the whole month, so you can come in there and have a look and see more of the platform. No problem at all. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to switch focus across now to our Cloud SIEM solution. You remember we talked earlier on, Cloud SIEM Advanced allows me to do some more in-depth things from a security operations perspective, so I can start to, correlate across all of my log sources, whether they're cloud, on-prem, hybrid, whatever. It's going to alleviate some of those alert fatigue problems for me by clustering together, related signals from an entity to give me an insight. So that's kind of what we're going to have a look at now, is how does it do that and how easy is it to investigate? And what we'll do is we're going to actually jump in and have a look at a particular insight. I'll do that very quickly, and then I'm going to let you guys jump in and do the same thing. So let me just flick across to Cloud SIEM. For some reason, Zoom keeps jumping my screens around. Every time I go in to share, it's in a different position. Okay, so you can kind of follow this through, I guess, on the screen that I'm sharing with you, or you can actually jump into Cloud SIEM yourselves. So to view Cloud SIEM, from your main console login that you're in there, you'll see this Cloud SIEM Enterprise icon down in the bottom left there. If you want to open that in a new tab, just do right-click, open in new tab. Okay, otherwise it'll open it in the same session for you. But I'll show you quickly in a second how to go back if you do that. So when you jump across into Cloud SIEM, if you do need to go back, click on the little 9 dots there, okay, and then click on Continuous Intelligence Platform, and that will then drop you back into the core platform we were in just a second ago. Okay, so let's give you a very quick snapshot view here then of what we're looking at. So this is our heads-up display within Cloud SIEM Advanced. Essentially, this number at the top here are my log ingestion numbers. So this is over the last 7 days that you can see here. Okay, I have 128 records that have been generated. From those 128 records, those get run across our rules engine, which has around about 600 out of the box rules. From those rules, we've generated 11,000 signals, okay, tracking that entity. So remember, an entity can be a username, can be a host name, can be an IP address, MAC address. Actually, it can be I can create a custom entity. The Insight clustering engine then looks at that entity, looks at the severity score, the risk associated with that signal and that entity, and then applies a look back window for that low and slow detection that you might remember I mentioned earlier. Okay. When the activity for that entity reaches a certain threshold, those signals are clustered together and then promoted into an insight. So the insight is that high fidelity alert for me that will contain all of the relevant information together. In the center of the screen there is kind of the radar view. It's giving me the same information. So that outer blue ring are records, inner blue ring signals, and then these colored triangles here are my insights, okay? And there'll be different colors dependent on whether they're new, whether they're in progress, whether they've been assigned to somebody, et cetera, okay? Some very quick SOC metrics here as well. So I can see, my mean time to detect, mean time to respond, mean time to remediate figures. This is a quick snapshot of how many I've got open currently, or how many new insights, how many are in progress, et cetera, et cetera. Top right-hand side here is, that's what I would call my baseball card view. Okay, so that's a quick snapshot of my latest insight that's been generated. And we'll take a deeper look at one of these in a second. And then finally, this is my latest activity down here. So any insights are being generated, any analysts that are working on insights, it'll list that information there. Okay. So for this particular insight, what I'm going to go through is I'm going to pick on one called persistence with initial access. We have two views for insights. This is kind of a typical list view. I prefer what we call our Kanban board view because this makes life easy for me to be able to investigate. Okay. If I want to reassign one of these to a specific team or analyst, I can just drag it across and release it, and then it'll reassign that for me. And these are all customizable. Okay, so I could have tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, email team, desktop team, whatever, or my own name here as a specific stack on this view. Okay. So what I'm going to look at is I'm going to look at one we have called persistence with initial access, which will be this one here. Okay. When you guys jump in and do this in a second, I'll give you a particular one to go in and investigate yourselves. So now I'm here within my investigative view. Okay, this is what I call my kind of workbench view. Left-hand panel is giving me more information around the insight, and the top part is where I would progress the workflow. So this is where I would assign it, where I would perform an action, close the insight, etc. Okay. The really cool stuff though is in this main panel here. So as I said, the insight clusters all related signals together for a particular entity. Now, the entity in this particular one is an IP address. Okay, so this IP you will see is present in all of these signals that are created. Now, as an analyst, for me to investigate this, all I really need to do is actually scroll through the timeline here of activity and understand what's happened. So the first thing I've got here actually is a threat intel match that's telling me that a file hash that's being detected is known bad. You know, I'm ingesting an external threat intel feed, could be from Stix, Taxi, any other source, and it's hit a match up against it. Okay, so it's saying, hey, I've seen this file hash, it's on a known bad list. Then as I come down through, what I've actually got here is a proof point alert to say that a user's received an email with a phishing link. Okay. Next one then is a firewall alert saying that a malicious file was allowed. I don't know where that null has come from, wouldn't normally be there. So yeah, it's saying that a malicious file has been allowed. Okay, and then my next signal here is from my EDR solution saying that malware is being detected on the endpoint. So very quickly now, as I scroll back up through, I can see that I've got a malicious file that's come into the system. It's come in via email. A user has clicked on a link and downloaded, sorry, so it hasn't come in by email. It's coming via a link in the email. So the user's received the link with a phishing link. Okay, they've clicked on the link, downloaded the file, and then the file has tried to execute on the endpoint. Okay. So now I've investigated that. What I would do typically here is mark it as in progress. Okay, I'd run through, do my investigation. Now, depending on what my workflow is, I might resolve this myself. So if I've got access to the CrowdStrike console, might run a full system scan, might quarantine it off the network. I might call the user and do some user education, etc., etc. Okay, so all of the kind of common things that you would normally do. Once I've done that, I can come in and close the insight here. Okay, so I can mark my resolution as resolved. Pop in my comments here, you know, full system scan, user educated, whatever I want to pop in there, and click on close insight, and then that would close that insight for me. Okay, so my investigation time for this particular type of threat is incredibly quick. You know, I can now investigate a phishing email where somebody has clicked on a link and downloaded something in under 2 minutes. You know, historically, when I worked in a SOC, it probably took me 2 hours to do that same thing using either a legacy SIEM solution or having to manually build that timeline. So you can see, you know, the power here of Cloud SIEM is it's reducing that alert fatigue, you know, because we've gone from quite a few thousand signals down to a handful of insights. And it's also increased my productivity. Okay, my investigation time is now really fast. Okay. So what I'm going to get you guys to do now is to actually go through here and look at one yourself. And let me get back to the right screen, and I'll share this with you so you know which one to look for. Sorry, bear with me 2 seconds. There we go. Okay. So hopefully you guys are in Cloud SIEM there already. Okay. If not, just click on that link, brings you into the screen, and then go through to Insights. Remember, if you jump in and that view is in that list view, then you can just click on the Kanban board view at the top there, and that'll give you that same view that I have here in front of me. Okay. If you can find the insight there called Command and Control, it's Insight 14911. Okay. Incidentally, an insight name is made up of 2 components. The number is sequential. Okay, so we're looking at 14911. Next one will be 14912, as you can see at the top of that particular stack. The rest of the name comes from the MITRE tags that are associated with the signal. So all of our signals are associated with either a tactic, technique, or sub-technique. Okay, and we extract those up to give you the name of that particular insight. Okay, so hopefully then you've clicked on 14911. Okay, it's taken you into the view, and what I want you to do now is just have a quick look at that particular insight and have a look at the signals that are being generated, and kind of I'll give you a minute or two, and then we'll kind of come back and talk about what you've seen there and what you think has happened. Okay. So while you're doing that, that's just kind of a quick workflow screen that I've popped up there. You know, I would come in, pick my insight to investigate, examine the signals, make my conclusion, take an action. And I'm sorry, I should have dropped into actions there for you, but if you guys are in there and you click on actions, you'll see various different options there. So I can email an insight to a team using an email. I can send it to a Slack channel. I can integrate with ServiceNow to create an external ticket, etc. Then I would update the status. So assign it to myself, close it, and then go back in essentially and start working on the next one. Okay. So hopefully you've started to kind of get a bit of an idea there, I guess, of what's happened. So I didn't create a poll for this one, but I'm going to ask you the questions anyway. So there were kind of 3 signals that were part of this particular insight, and hopefully you would have seen the same ones. So essentially what we saw there was an AWS API call from a terminated AD account. Okay. Followed by a rare GIS guard duty alert. Now the rare part comes into what I was talking about earlier on around this global threat intelligence that we use. Okay. So rare GIS means actually, you know, this is quite uncommon. We don't see this with our other customers. So that's where the rare GIS part comes into it. Then hopefully the 3rd signal that you would have seen there would have been for the AWS network firewall alert for high severity. And that was saying that it's detecting a malicious user agent. Okay. So the general conclusion here really of what happened, you know, I would look at this and say, well, it looks like a terminated employee still has access to AWS and may be attempting malicious activity. Okay. It's interesting to note the gaps in the timeline. You know, the first signal there was generated on the 2nd of April, and then there was a 4-day gap between the next one. So it could be a case that what's happened here is the user's testing. Okay, can I still run an API using my account? You know, and then see whether that's successful or not, and then maybe see whether or not it gets noticed, i.e. my access gets taken away or something. Then maybe after a couple of days, I might then try and launch whatever my attack is. So instance credential exfiltration was that next step. And this was all being done by a malicious user agent. So that kind of, again, gives me that understanding of how I can leverage that look back window to give me a bit of a picture on kind of, low and slow attacks kind of thing. So hopefully you kind of found that pretty useful and understood how quickly you're able to kind of remediate an insight that's being generated. I'm speeding up a little bit because I'm aware of the fact we're a minute over, so I apologize for that. So yeah, quick recap here then really on what those signals would be. So an API call from a terminated account. Maybe I'm missing a process in my environment. I've terminated the user and AD, but actually I've forgotten to terminate their AWS accounts and access as well. Okay, so that's one action that would come from this is to improve my terminated employee processes, for example. And then of course I would pass this to somebody, say, hey, I need to have this access removed from AWS and so on. So that's where I would hand that off maybe to my tier 2 team or perform the actions myself if I was able to. Okay. So kind of a quick recap then is I'm able to simplify alerts, using those insights, correlating many signals into a more manageable action. That investigation, enriching information, I mentioned that right at the very beginning, how we can bring additional context in for those alerts. Saves me having to pop out to different systems and look for things. And then, all of this is done by out-of-the-box content. That's another thing to point here. All of these signals that are being generated are all from out-of-the-box content that is curated by Sumo. Okay. So as I quickly flick through here, we've already kind of covered this bit off. So as I said, you guys got access in here. You can feel free to jump in and use these credentials and have a play around for the rest of the month. No problem at all. If you want to sign up for a free trial, then you can do that. Suresh, can you quickly copy that link and drop it into the chat window for me, please? Actually, why am I asking you? I haven't got access to it. Sorry, Suresh. It's one of those days today. Let me try that again. Okay, I'll pop that link in there. There you go. So the link's in the chat window for you. So you can go in there, and if you've already got an AWS account, then you can sign up for a free trial. Okay. One thing to note there is when you sign up for that free trial, you'll get a drop-down box that will ask you what region you want to sign up in. So if you're based here in Australia, you'll see Sydney there as a list, okay, that you can go through and do. Now, on top of that, and you'll also find this in that, when you log in, all of our training and certification is free. It's included as part of the product, and you'll find those links in the main Cloud SIEM login page when you go in there. And I will quickly copy these links and pop these in as well. Okay, so this is the link for training. And then we have a pretty comprehensive help page, which is publicly available as well. So feel free to kind of go to help.sumologic.com, and that gives you more information there around our products and so on. Okay. If you're still curious, jump onto YouTube. If you're users of YouTube, do a search for Sumo Logic. We've got a channel there, and you'll see various demos, etc., of our products as well that you can go in and have a look at. The final thing here I want to just get you to do, if you don't mind, is to fill in this AWS survey. That's really helpful in providing information back to both AWS and Sumo Logic on how useful you found this session. And my apologies that it kind of got a bit rushed towards the end. I let time run away with me a bit during the middle there. So, and we normally do a bit of kind of Q&A here, but again, I'm happy for those guys that are still on. If you've got any questions, to pop it into the Q&A. If not, thank you very much for your time. Apologies, we overran by a couple of minutes. It's been a pleasure to kind of run through this with you today. And yeah, hopefully you enjoyed the session. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we will catch up with you next time. Okay, so thanks everyone. Talk to you soon.